Today we're going to help Kurt from Uncivil Law not only solve a mystery, but understand why it's in the courtroom at Karen Reid's motion hearings. This might be a bit of revisionism for some people, so feel free to press the stop button and skip this video if you're not interested. Now, before we jump into this, I need to give you the usual PSA.
That guy.
Just say it!
Do Mr. Kearney.
Just say it!
Aiden Carney.
Just say it!
So Mr. Kearney.
Kids in your imagination. Just say it!
Turtleboy.
Yes, that's it!
Aiden Carney.
No, you don't need
Turtleboy.
you said it twice. Just say it once more. Come on.
Aiden Kearney.
Just say it!
Aiden Carney.
Just say it!
Turtleboy.
This has been a public service announcement for anybody who gets triggered by Turtleboy, Turtleboy, Turtleboy. Dun dun dun. Okay, with that out the way, let's see what Kurt had to say and what the mystery is.
Who is Clay Kearney? Because this guy just has it prominently on his laptop, I assume, for a deliberate reason. Who is Clay Kearney? We have a new mystery. Clay Kearney. How are we spelling this? Kearney. Death? Turtleboy? Well, Turtleboy isn't dead. Yeah, Turtleboy isn't dead. So but we're trying to send a message in court. We're clearly trying to send a message in court. It's a Turtleboy relative? That would make sense, I suppose. Yeah, I can't really find any, in a quick Google search, I can't find who they're talking about. Clay Kearney, Massachusetts, I can't find who they're talking about. So just a mystery RIP. RIP Clay Kearney, whoever you are. You just told me who it was? You say that like it answers a question, or maybe it does, and now I'm just left with more questions. My follow-up question is, what? You can help? Okay, I'm waiting. Oh yeah. What lore do I need to know? What the hell are you talking about? The woman who had him arrested claimed she was pregnant and took abortion pills. Okay. First of all, Turtleboy has sex? Ew. Second of all, what? As a joke, he named the baby Clay? So this is some real deep lore shit that's happening right now in court, is what you're telling me. This is some real deep cut, deep lore shit that's happening right now about Turtleboy. This is some deep lore Turtleboy bullshit, is what you're telling me, that this guy is bringing into open court.
Okay, Kurt, allow me to catch you up to speed. Bear with me now, because I need to show you a string diagram so you understand all the connections to this courtroom. Remember, very early in the piece, like way back at the hospital, when John was declared deceased, the McAlberts had already whispered in the ears of the O'Keefes and convinced them that Karen Reid had done this. So, when Karen Reid was arrested the first time, she was expected to plead out. She was supposed to accept all the responsibility and take a plea deal for some sort of shortened sentence, I guess. But as we know, that's not what she did. Instead, she found herself a lawyer, and at her first arraignment, she bonded out. This greatly angered the McAlberts because they're still on the hook if she doesn't plead out. And of course, they're still whispering in the O'Keefe's ears, and so they're also angered because she bonded out. So what did the police do? They doubled down, and they arrested her again, this time for premeditated murder. Of course, David Yannetti isn't going to let her take any plea deals, and they start working towards bonding her out a second time. And of course this angers the O'Keefes and the McAlberts even more. At her first bail hearing, her bond was set at $100,000. At her second bail hearing, it was reduced to $80,000. But there were also conditions. Among others, one of the conditions was to refrain from contacting the witnesses or other people involved in the case. You may recall that this is the first time we heard of her third-party culprit defence. Contrary to what the media claims, Aiden Carney wasn't aware of the third-party culprit defence. According to Yannetti and Jackson, they were made aware of what really happened to Officer John O'Keefe via a tip, who later recanted the tip. And since we know Aiden Carney has not recanted anything, then we know he's not the tipster. In fact, Aiden Carney had nothing to do with this case up until April 2023. Here's the backstory for those who don't know it. Aiden Carney was a blogger who originally started a website called TB Daily Sports, and that's essentially what he started out reporting on. Along the ways, he tripped over some pretty big stories regarding Massachusetts police corruption, and this began his career as a journalist in covering the local news and the local corruption. Some of the biggest stories that he broke that the mainstream media wouldn't were the CDL licensing scandal and the overtime scandal, both of which have netted some 50 or 60 Massachusetts state police being arrested, so obviously he's not making friends in the state police department. One of the troopers that Aiden had covered in a story was a woman named Leah Genduso. He accidentally discovered that she used to be a drug dealer. And so the articles that he covered on her were basically asking why the Massachusetts State Police are hiring criminals to become state troopers. All of this is obviously prior to Officer O'Keefe's murder in 2022. Also prior to that date, Aiden had become the target of someone who used to write articles for his website. What they fell out over is really beside the point. The fact is, they fell out, and she went on a rampage. Along with her many well-known tricks that she played on other public personalities, she forged federal documents. I'll let her tell the story in her own words.
Did you present a falsified complaint, federal copyright claim complaint?
100% yes.
Okay.
So, not only does he have this crazy broad that we call KP, or Krusty Panties, weaponising the law against him, but he's also got this ex-Massachusetts state trooper that he published articles about who had lost her job, targeting him as well. And, well, you know how the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? These two insane women ended up joining forces due to their mutual hatred of Aiden Carney. What looks to be the case now, via the Bederow Letters, is that these two found themselves a honeypot. For those who are unfamiliar with espionage fiction, a honeypot or honey trap are terms that the CIA uses for an operational practice involving the use of a covert agent, usually a female, to create a romantic relationship to compromise a target. We also find out through the Bederow Letters that Miss Peter actually does fancy herself as a CIA fictional character. Are you following so far? It all does come back to Karen Reed, but I just wanted to pause here and point out that this woman here, Lindsay Gattani, produced a fake pregnancy test and convinced Aiden that she was pregnant to him. After Aiden found out that the pregnancy was fake, he decided in jest to name the baby that never was.
Ryan sends $7.04 and says, for Clay Carney's birthday, a true American. Yes, Clay Carney would have been born on the 4th of July. That was his due date. Had he been real, but he was, you know what? He's real to me, God damn it. Okay. I don't give a shit if he was never real. If he was old photographs of Frankie Keegan's kids, that doesn't matter to me. In my heart, he will always exist. He will live forever. I had some onesies picked out, a crib. Like I said, he was going to go to Montessori school. We already had him enrolled in the fall. Dude, he's fucking real to me, God damn it. I love Clay.
Alright, so that's who Clay Carney is. But what has it got to do with Karen Reed? I hear you ask. It's only much later, after Aiden Carney is arrested, and Lindsay Gattani's phone records are accidentally handed over to Aiden Carney's defense team, that he realizes she's a double agent. And the whole time that she's manipulating him romantically, she's also operating multiple fake social media accounts, trashing the guy. We also find out, through the Bederow Letters, that Miss Gattani was indeed working hand in hand with Miss Peter and Miss Genduso and multiple Massachusetts State Police officers to frame Carney for things he never did. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's rewind the story back to April of 2023. Up to this point, Aiden Carney has little to no interest in the Karen Reed case at all. He's heard about the how long to die in the cold Google search, and it's at least sparked enough interest for him to start collecting some of the court documents. At this point, he expresses an interest in looking into the Karen Reed case, to which a person named Natalie reached out to him, claiming to be a very close friend of Karen's from Bentley University. It turns out she didn't know Karen from a bar of soap. She just did what all YouTubers do when she saw the story in the news. She tracked down all the players on Facebook, sent them all messages, and the first one that replied to her she made instant friends with. I'm sure Karen was standoffish at first and had no idea who this chick was, but for a time they did share a friendship just through messages, and she did share a lot of her thoughts with Natalie. Then in turn, Natalie started sharing them with Aiden. And that's when Aiden started writing about Karen's story. His very first article was written on the 18th of April 2023, based solely on the information that Natalie had provided him. It turns out that Natalie had pestered Karen so much by June that Karen told her to give it a rest. Natalie was so outraged and incensed that Karen had said such a thing to her, and she demanded that Aiden fix it for her. She put Aiden in touch with Karen, which effectively removed her as the middle person and made Aiden's job a lot easier. He was now able to ask Karen and her legal team questions directly. And then Natalie became so outraged and incensed that Aiden wouldn't fix her relationship with Karen for her that she started rampaging in forums and groups, trashing both Karen and Aiden. And of course we all know whose attention she caught, right? You guessed it, Kate Peter. And before you know it, she's colluding with Leah, Lindsay and Kate on the best ways to weaponise the law against Aiden Carney. In case it wasn't clear, the Lindsay and Natalie sagas are unfolding at the same time, pretty much with Kate Peter orchestrating everything in the background with her buddy Leah. Now I'm going to jump forward on the timeline to describe a more recent drama before we tie it all back to why it all matters. Somewhere along this timeline, involving Lindsay and Natalie, Sean McDonough pops up, retired DEA agent. He starts out his notoriety on a live stream with Aiden Carney discussing the case. He seems pretty clear from the outset that Aiden's got his sources and Sean has his own sources, but it turns out that's not true at all. It turns out that Sean's initial source is also Natalie. It also turns out that Natalie tried to manipulate Sean into trying to help fix her relationship with Karen as well, to which Sean, just as Aiden did, politely bowed out. And then, using his newfound popularity from appearing on Turtleboy's show, he started his own channel on YouTube. For a long time, everybody thought Sean had different sources to Aiden Carney. But eventually, Sean came clean and told us that a lot of his source material came from none other than Natalie. From what I can work out, or long story short, we could say, when Kate, Leah and Lindsay were successful in getting Aiden Carney locked up, Sean McDonough decided he wanted nothing more to do with Aiden Carney. Little did any of us know he was actually in the background, making nice with the rest of the gang, who of course are more than happy to adopt another Aiden Carney hater into the gang, where we now today find him colluding with the others to get Aiden locked up. So that's the backstory. That should bring you up to speed on who all the players are and what their motivations are, which essentially boils down to a shared hatred for Aiden Carney. Don't be disillusioned that any one of them cares about Officer John O'Keefe or Karen Reid, because every single one of them are now colluding with the same cops who are covering up Officer John O'Keefe's death. All they care about is feeding their hatred of Aiden Carney. This is the level of low that John's murderers will go to. We're starting to see email leaks and text message leaks, indicating that this little band of Kate Peters' merry men have been tasked with breaking up the Free Karen Reid movement. And nobody hates us more than the McAlberts. Don't forget, they threatened to bury Aiden Carney's corpse under Auntie Bev's seaside cottage. That's how much they hate all of us. And who is leading the charge against Karen? None other than Paul O'Keefe. Paul and Peggy are desperately looking for ways to get Karen's bond revoked. They need to shut her up. They need to stop her from garnering public support. They know that Turtleboy is key, that he kicked off this whole public support movement. And we know that Paul O'Keefe reached out to Kate Peter because she told us so in her own words.
And RIP Turtleboy, pretty much. And that didn't happen. So I ended up getting some emails from some members of John O'Keefe's family. They had read a blog series that I had written on Turtleboy maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And they originally came to me in my email and said, hey, do you have any more dirt on this guy? He's terrorizing our family.
Turns out Kate Peter had a lot more than dirt on Aiden Carney. She had information from Lindsay, Natalie and Sean McDonough that Karen Reid had been in contact with Aiden Carney, and that Aiden Carney, of his own volition, had gone out and made contact with witnesses in the case. Paul O'Keefe and the McAlberts then used Kate Peter's information, including undated soundbites from Turtleboy's own streams, to have him charged with 17 counts of witness intimidation. When that didn't get him thrown in jail, they then carted Lindsay into the courtroom and tried to say that he breached his bail conditions. When that didn't get him locked up, they all colluded with the same cops who were covering up John O'Keefe's murder and Lindsay Gattani to lure him to her house, where she could claim he assaulted her. What was the net gain for the McAlberts and the O'Keefes? They had successfully connected Karen Reid to Aiden Carney, and Aiden Carney with contacting witnesses or others involved in the case, thus breaking Karen Reid's bond conditions. The corrupt Massachusetts State Police then seized Karen's second cell phone with all of her attorney-client communications and all of her communications with Aiden Carney to complete the link between Karen's bond being revoked through her indirect contact with witnesses and others involved in the case via Aiden Carney. So there you have it. All these seemingly unrelated side dramas are literally connected to the McAlberts, whose sole purpose is to get Karen Reid's bond revoked. I know, it all sounds very far-fetched, but you need to go and watch Melanie Little's channel, where she reads through all of the Bederow Letters. which is essentially communications between Attorney Bederow, who represents Aidan, and the prosecution in his case, which is essentially the same prosecution in his case as it is in Karen's case, where all this information was revealed upon discovery. So hopefully that clears things up for you, Kurt, and anybody else who was wondering. You're welcome.
Clay was real, goddammit. He was real.